Hello, Algebra 2 trigonometric learners. So today we're going to graph sine and cosine functions with horizontal or vertical shifts. So we're going to do two kinds of shifting today, or two kinds of changes to our graphs. So the first one we're going to look at is what's known as a horizontal shift. These are not much newer than what we did with a horizontal move of our graphs before. Just remember, determining your amplitude, that is your A value right in front of the sine or cosine. Remember, it was the absolute value of our particular one, okay? Determine the period. Now, the period, remember, was 2 pi divided by our B value. To find our increment, or what each tick mark would be counted up by, that was our period divided by 4. And then the horizontal shift is whatever the H is, the H value. Now, remember, this is going to be opposite of what you think. So, negative inside is going to move you right. Positive inside, that's going to move you left. Okay? So it is going to be opposite of what you think. Then you're going to use this information to label and graph using this transformation. Let's take a look at a couple examples here. So very first thing I noticed, there is a -2 for my amplitude. My amplitude is just 2, but I want to put a little note by here and say flipped. So I know when I graph this guy, he's not going to start going up like sine normally would. He's going to go down. Okay, so we're going to want to keep that in our mind. Our period then is 2 pi divided by my B value, which is 2. So my period is pi. Our increment then is period divided by 4. Pi over 4. Now our horizontal shift, notice this piece right here. This is new. Right there. Negative pi over 2. X minus pi over 2. So what this means is I'm going to go right pi over 2. So let's put our normal graph here. There we go. I'm going to draw in my amplitude. So I got 1, 2, -1, -2. Go grab my blue color, remember, because we always make a color for our amplitudes. Up and down. Alright, then let's do our increment. So I'm going to go by pi over 4. So let's go pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4. So that's one whole period, right? Because that's just pi. So let's go backwards. Negative pi over 4, -2 pi over 4, -3 pi over 4, and finally -4 pi over 4. Now, here's where this is going to get a little different. I'm going to change color because my horizontal shift now is going to be green. So, I need to start my graph at pi over 2, and that's going to be to the right. So, that is 2 pi over 4, right? Pi over 2. So, I'm going to put a line right here, up and down. So then I know this is where my new starting point is, aka where my x-axis, or my y-axis would have been. So instead of starting here, I'm now going to start here. That's why that green line is so important. It makes it easy for me to find where I started. Now, it is a sine graph, but it is a flipped sine graph. So normally I would have went up, right? Well, he's going to start here still because he is a sine. We are now going to go down because he is flipped. Okay, so flipped is just going to cause you to, when normally you would have gone up, you're now just going to go down. So then I'm going to go this way. Looks like we'll hit up at pi over 4. Go down through 0, 0. Pi over 4. 2 pi over 4. 3 pi over 4, and then cross over right there, I think, right? Looks like it. So we'll come, whoops, that was a little messy. Go shoot through there, bounce, cross over, bounce, cross through, bounce, and cross through. So now notice we do have 2 full periods. Here's 1 period right here, and then we have another full period right there. Just not the best of increments this time. Marsh messed up. But notice, guys, this is a cyclical graph. So even though I moved it, notice, if we wouldn't know where it was, we would have said it's a normal sine graph. So careful, make sure you do mark in your horizontal shift with either A, another color, or B, something way that I can tell that you moved it, okay? Our domain should be -infinity to infinity. And my range, of course, I am bouncing between -2 and 2. Let's try one more. So my amplitude is 3. Period, well, that's 2 pi divided by 1/2, it looks like, which is just 4 pi, which you can do quickly on your calculator if you need to. My increment, 4 pi divided by 4, just plain old pi. It looks like I'm shifting left pi. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill in our graph here. There we go. Fill in my amplitudes. 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3. Take my blue here and make my dotted line. There we go. There we go. My program's not liking me right now. Okay, let's fill in our increments. So I got 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, and 4 pi. So 1 period right there. Then I got -pi, -2 pi, -3 pi, and finally -4 pi. Now it tells me I'm going to go left pi, so that is a -pi. So this is going to be my new starting line right here at this mark. So I'm going to mark that in right there. Now it is a cosine. So cosine, remember guys, starts all the way at the top, and then it looks like I'm going to cross over right here, bounce down here, cross over, bounce, cross over, same thing over here, cross over, bounce, cross over. So it looks like it's going to do something like this as I draw through my dots here. There we go. So something like that. Our domain, -infinity to infinity. Goodness. And then -3 to 3 for my range. Now, what about vertical shifts? Vertical shifts are a little bit of a different animal. So we have amplitude, remember, that's still absolute value of A. Our period is still 2 pi divided by B. My increment is my period divided by 4. Now, your vertical shift is going to be the K value. If it is a plus outside, it is going to go up, and if it is a negative, it's going to go down. Now, what you're going to want to do, we're going to draw in our horizontal line, which is called the midline of the graph. So we are going to show where the x-axis is, and then we're going to draw with a different color our midline, okay? So let's try a couple of examples. So the very first thing, amplitude, it's still 3. My period, 2 pi divided by 2, so just pi. My increment will be pi over 4. Vertical shift. Notice this -2 on the outside. That means we're going to go down 2. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw in my line, But I want to make my x-axis not in the middle, because ultimately I gotta go down from it, right? So let's put a line, our x-axis, all the way up there. Okay? Now I'm then going to do my vertical shift. We're going to change our plan a little bit. My vertical shift, I'm going to make it purple. So my vertical shift, I got to go down 2. So I'm going to go down 1, 2. So this would be -1, this would be -2. What I'm then going to do, guys, is I'm actually going to put a solid line right here through -2. What happens now? Well, now we continue on like we normally would. But this is our new x-axis. It's the new midline. So now from here I have to do my amplitude. So my amplitude is from 1, 2, 3. So right here. Then we're going to go down 3 from here. So -3, -4. We're going to have one all the way down here at -5. Notice this is going to be a little different. That's where these colors are coming in. So we're going to put in our amplitude up here. -5. Can't draw a straight line to save my life tonight. There we go. Let's put in our increments. So I got pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, and 4 pi over 4. And then I got -pi over 4, -2 pi over 4, -3 pi over 4, and -4 pi over 4. There we go. Now, let's draw in our dots. We're starting at sine, right? So sine is not going to start here, though. It's going to start at our midline. So it's going to start right here. And then it's going to cross up and hit our amplitude right there. And then it's going to cross over. Now, it's not going to cross over here, though. It's going to cross over on our midline at that point. And it's going to bounce down here at our amplitude and then cross over there at our midline. Then we're going to bounce down here, cross over our midline, bounce up here, then cross over at our midline. So it looks like we're going to do something like this. Like that. So my domain, guys, is still -infinity to infinity, but your range is a little different. Notice we are bouncing between -5 and 1. So my range is from -5 to 1. So you're going to want to be kind of careful with that with your vertical shifting, because that does change your range a little bit. Okay? Let's try one more. So this negative here, we do know we're flipped. So let's keep that in mind, okay? Amplitude 1, period 2 pi divided by 4, or just pi over 2. My increment would be pi over 2 divided by 4. That's pi over 8. Don't worry about it too much, okay? Vertical shift, looks like we're going up 1. So, let's go ahead and graph here. I'm going to put my normal x-axis a little bit down because we are going up with my x-axis. Okay, let's do our midline here. So I'm going to go up 1. So right here at 1 is where my new x-axis or my midline is going to be for our graph. Okay, and then now let's go ahead and do our amplitude. So from here I'm going to go up 1 and down 1. Notice my amplitude is actually going to be my x-axis, right? So we're going to put our dotted lines here. This guy's going to be pretty skinny compared to normal, what we normally have for our graphs, or we've been doing recently. It's going to be a pretty skinny graph. There we go. And then let's go ahead and put and do our increments, which is pi over 8, 2 pi over 8, 3 pi over 8, and 4 pi over 8. Then it looks like I got negative pi over 8, negative 2 pi over 8, negative 3 pi over 8, and finally negative 4 pi over 8. Okay? We are doing a flipped cosine. So normally he would have started up here, but he's not. He's going to start down here. And then he's going to cross over here in our midline, bounce up here, cross over here, and bounce down here. Same thing. Cross, bounce, cross, bounce. There we go. So my domain, negative infinity to infinity. My range, though, guys, is from 0 to 2. My 2 amplitude amounts. And that is the end of this very long video. See you later, Sabers.